Charles Omenihu arrested on Monday early evening, like around 5 o'clock, or police came just before 5 o'clock to his house on suspicion of misdemeanor domestic violence. His girlfriend called to report that he pushed her to the ground during an argument. I've collected news reports here to make sure I get the details right. Mercury News actually wrote that because the alleged offense is a misdemeanor, part of why he's out of custody immediately, there's no strict deadline for when charges would have to be filed. So, bad situation. A bad situation on a personal level for him and her. Bad situation for the Niners on several levels. At minimum, you call it a distraction. But my first thought when I saw this story, I guess my second thought when I saw the story was just, there was a time when this felt like a regular situation for the 49ers. They have not had to deal with this. We don't have like the blueprint in recent years for how this, they will deal with this week. As we record this, there's been no news.
Well, they haven't had a talk. I mean, Kyle talks tomorrow. I would imagine they put out a statement. We're gathering information. Your classic,
exactly what they did.
Cut and paste statement that every fucking franchise does. I don't blame them. Probably the first question Kyle's going to get tomorrow is this situation, what your plans are. I saw a picture, and I told you this before we hopped on. Over the last month of the season, the Niners were rolling. They were a fun team. A lot of former players were going to games. I saw a picture of Ray McDonald, and I went like, are you inviting Ray McDonald if you're the Niners? It was a little weird. I mean, he had situations where he hit the chick. Like, that was verified. Like, that happened. This situation, my take on domestic, when these stories break, is always the same. If you hit a woman, you deserve to go to jail. If she makes it up, she deserves to go to jail. Because these situations, only these two know. Like, if there's not someone else there, it's a he said, she said thing. She claims she didn't have any bruising. She claimed her arm hurt. That was in the article. My overall take is like, I can't imagine him playing this weekend. I would expect him, he was going into his free agent year. So for a big picture for this guy, like, you notice when you watch the Jags, you see Arden Key flying around. Like, the 49ers have resurrected careers. And I would say this guy's had his career traded from the Texans to come to the Niners. I don't know what his free agent, quote unquote, money was going to be, but someone was going to pay him something. And I think it just derails his situation. And I just don't see how the 49ers, even if he's looking at John Lynch claiming he didn't do anything, she's making this up, whatever the situation, they've only had a taste of it one time with Ruben, and they kept believing him, and it backfired. And I know Jed lets these guys do whatever, but he had a front row seat of just these situations consistently bit him in the ass. I mean, obviously he's been an impactful player for him. He's a starter, but I don't imagine he plays.
And I'm about to, with these situations, like, generally you're careful with exactly your words. The police report says the 300 block of Santana Row. So, the initial report I thought made it seem as though, I guess his home is at the 300 block of Santana Row. I don't know. Is that a condo? I don't know Santana Row.
I mean, I would imagine he has a condo down there. Yeah.
So I don't, when I read that, my first reaction was 300 block of Santana Row. Is that like a restaurant or something? But apparently that is the residence. So, the other factor from a football standpoint,
I'm not trying to laugh, but I just remembered when Alden had the parking thing and he opened the door and they called it terrorism.
The parking thing was, what was the deal? It was in front of his neighbor's house. He intentionally blocked their.
Yeah, it was like terrorism, bomb threats, the
bomb threat was a different thing. He said, bomb.
He just had some headlines of just bomb threats, terrorism.
Yes, that was another level. Unfortunately, one of the realities when it comes to sports with these things is
people in real estate say you can put the condos above, the below the commercial buildings or restaurants. It's a cash cow. You get to double dip, the commercial building owners.
Put the residential above the commercial.
Yeah. So it's like, it's all one building,
right.
But it's like you have nice condos above, and then you have Starbucks, a little pizza joint, a bar. It's like, you just got a lot of cash flowing through to
maybe a little restaurant. You live there yourself. The bar downstairs. One of this, as we all know, anyone who's followed sports a long time knows that when it comes to legal issues, whatever they are, the rules are not the same for everybody in terms of, how lenient a team is with a player. It is directly correlated to how good the player is. And with Charles Omenihu, he's a really good player. He's been a really good player for them. I would say he's been a top 3 pass rusher for them this year. Bosa, Armstead when healthy, maybe.
And Armstead missed the majority of the season. I would say if you factor in the totality of it, he's been, you could argue, their second best D lineman. We just factor in playing time.
Yep. I think you could argue that. So the thing with him was he played 15 snaps. He got hurt in the game last week. Now he came back. Was he going to play again this week? There was no reason to think after the game last week or Sunday against the Cowboys that he wasn't going to play this week. But I wonder, does that make a decision even easier for the 49ers? The other factor being, regardless of what you think the circumstances are, without even getting into the circumstances, how wrong he is, whatever, this is a distraction if he plays for you. Now, to what degree is it distraction? I don't know. Guys have played with all kinds of shit, and distraction is a very hard to define word. But it would, I think I just want to say this to your original point. It does make it harder for them to win the football game if he's not on the field because he's a good player. But in some ways, it makes their week easier if they quickly made a decision that he wouldn't play.
I think we can already see some articles coming down the pipe, not that I would read them, in the local paper, that if they were to play him, the Heat, and when I say Heat, I mean, I don't know the average age. It's like fucking the CW. Like, what's the average age of people reading this?
Hey, that's where Live Golf is going to air.
Well, I know. That's my point is. You should just stayed on YouTube. But we're dealing with human beings. And if I'm John Lynch and I'm Kyle Shanahan, they have equity, not just from knowing what they're doing, but pretty high level guys on the team, right? They've had one incident, and it was with Reuben Foster, who we all knew when they drafted him, it was a risky move and it blew up in their face. I hate doing hypotheticals with this, but if I'm Charles Omenihu and I look at John and I say, listen, whatever was happening, I did not even mean to shove her. I just tried to calm her down, and she tripped. Or I'm just saying,
it's best case scenario for.
I'm just saying it's very understandable that if they say, listen, we've talked to him, we feel very comfortable. We've been around him now for 18 months. We believe the guy when he tells us something because we've believed every word he said to us. It's not inconceivable that they say that, right? Because just based on she was shoved to the ground or she was pushed to the ground was the thing. It wasn't, he's hitting her. If you follow the 49ers a lot, you've seen all sorts of shit, right? Beating up women, phones, beating up old men. This is one of those that in California, someone has to go to jail when a domestic situation is called. And, reading the article, he talks to the people. So maybe is he saying, I didn't do this? Is he admitting to this? Because you'd say, if he goes, listen, I did push her. She fell on the ground. I don't think you can bring him to the game. And he just played the last game for the 49ers and probably dramatically impacted his future in the NFL, especially when it comes to getting a big contract, right? If he tells you that.
Yeah.
Because I think 20, 30 years ago, hell, 10 years ago, I think he's probably playing in the game. It's just, this is pro sports. We're not teaching moral lessons here. We're just not. I mean,
are you saying based on how things have changed, or Harbaugh Balky would be more likely to play him?
I'm not just talking Harbaugh Balky. I'm just saying the way the league was.
Yeah.
Good teams play players that play for their team unless I can't. Because the 49ers consistently.
No, I agree. That has definitely it has changed some. I mean, it has changed. Yes, I agree with you.
It has changed where the pressure from the organization, you're just more likely to just capitulate. Sounds like you don't give a shit. But ultimately, while they do care, all these people are married, they have daughters. I just mean their job is to win football games. And it's just it gets very uncomfortable. I think you're the defender of the media. I think sometimes the media,
I'm a defender of journalism. Let's be very clear what I defend.
This is not, you're not teaching life lessons here to the guys. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's job, they have one job, and that's to beat the Eagles. That's just their job, and Charles Omenihu, when he plays, gives them a better chance. So if the opportunity, it's not like the police are going to say he can't play. He is available to play. We know that for a fact. He's available to play. True, if they want to play him, he can play.
I will say, though, I'm not even disagreeing here, but just to play devil's advocate, the Niners do what a lot of teams do. John Lynch and like Jed York, like they say they want a team of guys that act a certain way, right?
And
I
they followed
would say
up with
this,
that.
they have. No, they absolutely have. Which goes to your point, like I don't want to. I honestly would not be surprised either way. If you told me he plays, it wouldn't shock me. It would tell me that they think they talked to him, and that in the end he'll be, what's the word? The story. It will look better for him than it looks now. But if you told me it's not going to look better for him, and they've just decided to just move on, I would believe that too. Move on doesn't mean. I mean, are you saying you think? Like, do you think they would cut him this week?
Well, I think the waiver wire is officially kind of, I think it's different. I could just see them saying, don't come around, one of those, more than cut him. Like, this isn't.
But if we make it to the Super Bowl and you are exonerated, as many people have told me the word I was looking for, you could come back and play in that game?
I guess there's another game potentially too. Yeah, I do not expect them to cut him. Because if they would have cut it, they would already cut him. I think they would have put it out. He's no longer on the team. Would be my guess, unless they haven't talked to him. Because yesterday, 4:30. Here's the way it works. Kyle's the one coach in the league that you win. He makes you work on Monday. So let's say they went in for a couple hours. Tuesday is a mandatory off day in the NFL. Like, you're not coming to the office Tuesday. So now I would imagine he came in today to talk to Kyle and John. Wouldn't you imagine?
Yeah, because he was freed. I didn't see exactly what time he made bail, left jail, but last night.
It is a complicated situation. But I think the majority, and again, I'm not trying to shit on the media here. The overwhelming take is 100% he can't play, cut him, get rid of him, don't do it. And I think coaches always push back like, well, we would bury half the people that actually didn't do anything. I'm not saying domestic disputes are a little more complicated than just any situation. It's always easy to just pivot on, get rid of them, where you give guys second chances or actually you just let it play out and he didn't actually do anything.
Yeah, that's what makes it hard is that you're making the judgment without the details. Beyond
but that in these situations, Guy, especially in a domestic dispute or domestic dispute accusations, it's just two people. Like, only two people truly know. No one ever knows.
Yeah, I mean, but everybody you talk to a person and you form an opinion as to whether that person is lying or telling the truth, right?
Yeah, but my point is he might have done something. He could be looking you in the eye and you believe him and he tells you I didn't do shit.
I understand. I understand. But even that is more details than what we have, than what we get access to. If somebody's opinion, by the way, is I don't think he should play for the 49ers, I got no problem with that, given
100%. My point is, though, if he plays, they're going to go with we believe him telling the truth.
Yeah.
And they're just basing it on his opinion.
Right.
Right.
Well, they could be basing it on her opinion. They could be basing it on, you worked in the league. Like, teams can get access to more information from the police than what is in the police report, right?
Yeah.
Through back channels. You can find out, hey, yeah, here's what our officer said. The officer, there's a difference between officers assessed the situation and said he's got to go, and the officers felt like, and again, I
would say this one was pretty descriptive that she was pushed to the ground.
I understand, but my point is, like, you can talk to the police the responding officers and say, yeah, they didn't feel like it was a dangerous situation, but XYZ, here's why they did what they did. I don't know that they would ever say that. I'm just saying the 49ers can get more access to information than we have.
And listen,
for better or worse, right? They can get access to information that says he cannot be in our building again. Also,
right or wrong. And listen, I fucking would never touch a woman, never have, never will. If the headline was he punched her in the face, it just would feel a lot different than pushed to the ground. Like, let's just listen, see what happened. It's just a fact, right?
Yeah.
There would be a lot more, like, even if he's like, I didn't do it. The punched her in the face. She had a bruise or whatever because there was no bruising. She refused to get a medical exam. It's just, I'm not acting like this isn't I'm not saying this is an easy one either way. It's a complicated situation. I would probably I'm on the media side here because I already know where they're going to lean. I wouldn't play it. Just move on. But I think they would say, in the history of the league, if he tells you that I didn't do it, it's easy to go like, fuck it.
Right.
Our job is not to set the tone for society. It's just not.
No, but at the same time, you would not do that unless you think he's telling the truth.
Yeah, but they've been lied to before.
100%. But what I'm saying is, even though the NFL's job is not to set the tone for society, if he said, "Oh yeah, I did it," actually was worse than the report, you wouldn't go, "Well, it's not our job to set the tone for society. He's playing," right? You would only play him if you believed that whatever, he'll be innocent.
I would say in the history of the league, there are a lot of people that if he's not getting arrested or whatever, they would still play him.
I completely agree. I understand. What I'm saying though is, if the Niners, there is a difference in how even NFL teams sometimes how they act based on whether they think the person did it or didn't do it, right? Even though there's a million examples of, well, it happened, Tyreek Hill, but it happened a long time ago, right? Or you get a lot of that. Well, it was somebody else's problem. Joe Mixon, that was somebody else's problem, right? You get plenty of that. But in the moment, I do think teams do make decisions in part based on, do they think it happened or not? Or how severe do they think it was or not, right? There's degrees.
I would say much more now in the last 5 years than before. I truly don't believe many cared throughout the history of the game. And I would say pro sports in general. I'm not just the NFL gets a bad rap. The NBA and baseball is no different. College football was not much different. I mean, this is just because it was your number one goal was win or get fired. And it still is. And that's why I think where a lot of them push back. Like, I got to win. Like, ultimately, this is where it is different than college, why Urban Meyer took a lot of shit and why NFL coaches ultimately, like, let's just say worst case scenario, he's like, we think he probably did it. They would never publicly say this and they still played him. They wouldn't be the first. And they probably won't even be the last. I'm not condoning that.
I know.
I'm just saying.
But I do think you're also saying that that's unlikely to be the situation here with them based on the way they've operated as a franchise.
Yeah. My original take was just take the easy way. Don't even mess with it. It's not worth the potential backlash. And that is just, then the more I say that out loud, that's just not the way teams operate, whether it's John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, or whether it's Jerry Jones. Like, it's just not the way it works.
I just think I keep saying that. I think it's so hard because the phrase potential backlash can mean like there's a wide spectrum of what that ultimately means, right? And that's part of what you're juggling is like, how bad is it? Yeah. If he wears our uniform again. And the other thing you're juggling, again, just being the reality, can we win this game without him? Is Drake Jackson good to go? Can Drake Jackson give us 15 snaps, almost as good as Charles Omenihu's 15?
Yeah, I'd say clearly not because he hasn't been. I
didn't say as good. I said almost as good.
Yeah.
Can he give you a percentage that makes it worth? You know what? 80% of Drake Jackson and no problems is worth it, right? I don't for 15 snaps because 15 is what Omenihu played last week.
Yeah.
He didn't play. He averaged 31 snaps a game this year, but he only played 15 last week.
And he missed a lot because he went to the locker room, so it would have been higher.
So that's part of it. It's like is Drake Jackson ready for the moment?
But at the end of the day, this was supposed to be the biggest matchup of the year on paper, on the field, and a fucking 49er got arrested on Monday. Got arrested. A guy that starts. Like, that's a guy that plays, the guy that had 2 sacks in a playoff game. I mean, it's a disaster. Innocent, guilty. The other players on the team, the coach, they had nothing to do with this. It's the NFL. I mean, this is, when you think everything's rolling, 12 straight wins,
everybody's healthy.
One of your best defensive linemen goes to jail. He's probably begging his way right now to play in this game. And they have a very tough decision. This is why when these head coaches, talk about, being a coordinator and all this stuff, I don't have to worry about. It's never my decision. This is John and Kyle. This is
talk.
This is very difficult. I will be stunned if this isn't the first question he's asked. Like, what's the latest and what's your guys' plan with this player tomorrow, right?
Yep.
Not what we planned on. I mean, I was fired up talking about football stuff, and then you forwarded me that thing, and then a bunch of other people forwarded it to me.
The good news is I'm still fired up talking about football stuff.
Me too.
I will think about this game moving forward as if he's not in it. Like when I do my 2 a.m. Baldy's breakdowns.
Yeah.
Like, I do think that, like, until there's some other news, and by the time you listen to this, you might hear some. I do think you have to think about the game like he's not playing for them.